If you are looking to have your best year yet on Etsy, then you are sitting in the right video. Today we're going to be discussing 6 key goal-setting habits for your Etsy shop. And if you implement any of these goal-setting habits, or ideally multiple of these in the planning out of your Etsy shop, then you're pretty much guaranteed to have the best year you've ever had on Etsy. Hi guys, I'm Shauna. I used to be a 4th grade school teacher, and now I am a full-time 6-figure Etsy seller. On this channel, I share all about how I went from a frustrated school teacher who was financially strapped, working 12 hours a day and tutoring every day after school to make ends meet, to a 6-figure Etsy seller who has tripled, almost quadrupled my annual teaching salary and has built and still building a life that I absolutely love. So let's get into it. But first, I want to share this really quick clip with you that I came across recently, and I thought it was really interesting and so very relevant to this topic. John Rohn is a self-made millionaire and was broke at age 25, but wound up having this unique opportunity to work with this guy, I think his name is Mr. Schoaf, who is a really successful business guy, and this is what happened.
Not long after I met Mr. Schoaf, we're having breakfast one morning. Mr. Schoaf said, "Mr. Rohn, now that we've gotten acquainted, we know each other fairly well," he said, "maybe one of the best ways I can help you," he said, "let me see your current list of goals. Let's go over them and talk about it." And I said, "What?" "I don't have a list." He said, "Well, Mr. Rohn, if you don't have a list of your goals," he said, "I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s, which he did. And that got my attention. I said, "You mean my bank balance would change if I had a list of goals?" He said, "Drastically." So that day I became a student of setting goals.
Super interesting, right? Like, that clip really got my attention. To further this point, I want to share with you some research done at the Dominican University in California that found if you write down your goals, you are 42% more likely to achieve these goals than if you don't write them down. It kind of seems like a no-brainer that if I'm 42% more likely to achieve my goals if I write them down, and it takes like 2 seconds to write your goals down, then why not write them down? Like, it's a no-brainer. So that leads us to the question, where are your goals? Do you have them written down? Do you have them written down so that we can look at them, we can refer to them, we can be in thought over them, we can discuss them together? Okay, well, if you don't have your goals written down just yet, you will by the end of this video if you take action on these steps as we go through them. First, setting annual goals. Now you might be wondering, but wait a second, the thumbnail on this video said don't set annual goals. And well, it's a little more involved than just that. We are going to start with the annual goals, but it's not going to be the thing we come out of this really focusing on. But let's start there and let's set them. Setting annual goals can be really fun. It can be really motivating. It coincides with the start of a new year, which creates that psychological fresh start effect where we feel motivated to make positive changes. We're reflecting on the past year. We're excited to plan for the future with a clean slate. Anything's possible. There's so much potential, and we feel really optimistic. Okay, so we now know that writing goals down makes us 42% more likely to achieve them. So let's take a minute to write our annual goals down. We're going to start with input versus output goals. We're going to jot both of them down. An input goal focuses on the actions that you take to achieve a goal, while output goals focus on the results you want to achieve. This concept is important, and I am going to show you some examples here because I'm going to let you come along with me and you're going to see what my actual goals were the first year that I started my Etsy shop. Now, of course, we're going to write everything down because we're going to be 42% more likely to achieve our goals if we're writing them down. My first year on Etsy, my input goals were 1, to create 2,000 listings, 2, to listen to daily content to improve my skills, 3, to get increasingly better at adding value to the market, 4, to work on 3, what I call threads in my shop throughout the year. I'll explain that in a bit. 5, to start listing for Christmas in July. These were my input goals because each of these things I have control over. I can put 2,000 listings in my shop. That's not dependent on someone else. That's my efforts. I can listen to content daily. I can work towards increasing my skill at adding value to the market. I can work on what niches and what threads I'm building out in my shop, and I can start actively listing for Christmas in July. Now let's talk about my output goals for that year. My output goals are things that hopefully my input goals are going to lead to. My output goals are just dreams or wishes without input goals, because I have to take action in order to make the output goals happen. So the output goals were, I wanted to have 3,000 sales by the end of the year. 2, I wanted to have at least one $5,000 profit month during that year. 3, I wanted to create a faster sales velocity in my shop. And 4, I wanted to make over $15,000 profit with my shop by the end of the year. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which goals I did achieve, and you'll know exactly what the action steps were that led me to the results that you will soon see I had. We're really going to focus more on our input goals than our output goals, because our input goals are things we're in control of. The output goals became more like my whys, my reason why I was doing all of this input. And that's because those output goals could really change my life. They could change my life in a very impactful and in a very significant way. I saw the potential of those output goals being things that could create financial freedom for myself, get me out of my teaching job, which I was really burned out with, not so much the kids. I loved working with the kids and their families, but more of the politics that surrounded teaching and the pay scale that surrounded teaching. Now, before we move on to habit 2, since we're going to be focusing on our input goals, let's just take a moment to delve a little bit deeper into them. Take a look here. We've got our input goals here on the left, and we're going to break each of these down into kind of thinking about it. What does that look like? How can I achieve that over the next 12 months? With the 2,000 listings, I really looked at that like, okay, then I need around 166 listings each month. With my content goal and making sure that I'm listening to content daily, how am I going to achieve that with my limited time? Well, I'm going to listen to content each day on my drive to work and my drive home from work. And then I can sneak in more content while blow drying my hair or listening to it while I'm cooking or taking a run. In terms of improving how I was going to get better at adding value to the market, I was going to make sure that some of that content that I was listening to was going to be videos about adding value to the market, and I might listen to different videos or listen to the same videos numerous times while I attempted to implement those strategies and get better at that skill. 4th, I said that I wanted to build upon at least 3 threads throughout my shop throughout the year. I think of a thread as being something that ties my listings together throughout the year. This helps me double down on that thing throughout the year, and doubling down is so very important to your Etsy success. If you want to know more about doubling down, I'll leave a video linked here and down below. But for example, let's say I'm going to be working on teacher shirts. This is really a thread that I'm going to be building out throughout the year. The shirts I make in January are going to be very different than the shirts I'm making in April, which are going to be very different than the shirts that I'm making in November. So this is a thread with very different kinds of listings throughout the year, all targeting that same customer, the teacher. Another example might be pregnancy shirts. So if I am creating a pregnancy shirt for that mama to be, those designs are going to look different in February, where maybe I'm making a Valentine's Day version. Then they might look during the summer, where I might have a 4th of July theme to it, or I might have an evergreen niche to it that's based more on popular themes in nurseries. So maybe I'm going to do something with bears or something with balloons, because I see that that's a theme in nurseries. So that's what I mean by thread. And my goal was to build on 3 of those. Again, this is very much interlocked with the concept of doubling down on something and feeding the algorithm, getting a fire going in your shop, and blowing flames on that fire and getting it raging. So the concept of building on a thread throughout the year is super duper powerful with that. And so a goal for that might have looked like pregnancy reveal shirts, teacher shirts, and nurse shirts. And 5th, I was going to do Christmas in July, and what that was going to look like was doubling down on anything that had sold throughout the year, making designs for those threads and hitting Christmas from those threads. So nurse Christmas shirts, teacher Christmas shirts, and pregnancy reveal Christmas shirts. And when making this plan during the month of January, that also included the idea of taking screenshots of bestsellers since we're just coming out of Christmas and having that as my data and research. When I go back in July, I'm not going to have any bestsellers to look at to help me make decisions about what to list. And so I can save those screenshots and revisit them in July when I start listing for Christmas. Already, don't we feel like this is like shaping up and becoming more of a manageable and achievable thing? So now let's move in to habit 2. And this is going to be creating what we're going to call 3-month missions for yourself. This is where we focus on 90-day or 12-week chunks instead of an entire year. Okay, fun fact for you. Did you know that people are likely to stop working on their annual goals in about 75 days from making them? So if you're starting your New Year's resolutions, usually by mid-March you've put it out. You're not even thinking about those goals anymore and you just lose track of them. And so making 90-day chunks or 12-week chunks for your goals could be a much more manageable way to really stay focused on your goals. Also, annual goals are so large, they're so lofty. I said I was going to do 2,000 listings. If I don't now break that down for myself and really kind of direct my attention back to it numerous times, then I'm not going to wind up being able to most likely achieve that. So to have our best year yet on Etsy, we're going to set what I'm calling 3-month missions. And in addition to it just being really wonderful to help you break down these bigger goals into more manageable chunks, and now it's also in a chunk of time where you're more likely to stay focused on that. By the time your 3-month mission is done, it's time to make the next 3-month mission, and then you're in tune to that again, and you're more likely to achieve these 3-month missions. Again, we kind of put out after about 75 days on average when working on a goal. So this is going to be way more effective in just the fact that we're making new 3-month goals every time we're about capped out on how long people usually tend to focus on a goal. So now we've gotten big goals. We've made them into smaller, more manageable goals. We are more likely to stay focused on goals for this amount of time. And in addition to all that, it gives us an opportunity to celebrate smaller wins. We don't have to wait till the end of the year to celebrate, oh, finally got 2,000 listings in there. No, we'll be able to know a smaller marker for how many listings we want to get in that 3-month chunk. And since we're 42% more likely to remember them, if we write them down, let's write them down right now. Now, in setting my 3-month missions, I really prefer to just have 3 or 4 items on there so I don't overwhelm myself. The ones I filled out for myself here on my 3-month missions, there's 3 or 4 big things I really want to accomplish over the next 90 days. When I was first starting out my shop, it was 1, create 500 listings. 2, focus on these niches. I'll share with you here that 3 of them were teacher, nurse, and pregnancy reveal shirts. And I had 2 others on this list during a 3-month mission as well. 3, I was going to watch content daily. 4, at least one piece of content each week should be about market research and how to add value to the market. As I filled in my 3-month mission, I would be looking back at my annual goals. My 3-month mission goals should be supporting what I had for my annual goals and breaking them down into smaller chunks so that I eventually am able to achieve those annual goals after we've done 4 of these 3-month missions. But to be honest, even after we've completed writing down our 3-month missions, we have an entire 3 months to accomplish these things. And we could easily run the risk of doing exactly what happens with annual goals, writing them down and not really being mindful to look at them and work on them and just kind of forget about them. And that's where habit number 3 comes in. So next, we're going to chat about our weekly progress pulses. And this is where we just take a minute at the beginning of each week and at the end of each week. We're going to journal our priorities for the week, and then we're going to revisit those priorities at the end of the week to see how we did. You see, one of the reasons we're writing everything down and why that strategy is so effective is because we are meant to look back at what we've written down. We're meant to reflect on it, to be thoughtful over it, to measure how successful we were or are being at it, to be reminded and directed back to these goals. This is how we are going to get or gain meaningful progress toward our goals in our lives. So heading over to our weekly progress pulse. A weekly progress pulse for me looked a little like this. Now, remember, you're doing this at the beginning of the week and you're going to revisit it at the end of the week. So at the beginning of the week, I'm just going to write 3 to 5 things down that I want to make sure these are the top priorities for the week. These are going to support my achieving my 3-month mission. I broke my 3-month mission of 500 listings down by 12 weeks. And what did that look like for a week? For me, that looked like I wanted to do 21 designs, which was going to equal 42 listings for me, because I've always been a fan of A/B testing. I'm not going to go into A/B testing right now, but if you're curious of what A/B testing is, I will leave it linked up in the corner here, and I'll also leave that playlist linked down in the description for you. And then I kind of like to break down that goal even more for the week. That's going to be 8 teacher Valentine's Day designs, 8 reading designs, 5 couples reveal shirts. I'm going to listen to at least 7 pieces of content. One of them is going to be about market research. Finally, I might have something in there like get 1 new trendy mock-up, especially if I'm going into something like Valentine's Day and maybe I wanted to have 1 holiday themed mock-up in my arsenal of mock-ups. Now notice this section over here, the red, yellow, green section. This is so at the end of the week, I can go through each of those 5 goals I've set and I could just monitor what I'm doing. If I nailed it and completed that task, I'm going to color in the green one. If I'm still working on it, I made some progress in this area but didn't quite achieve the goal for that week, I'm going to mark it in yellow. And if I really didn't do anything on it that week, I'm going to mark it in red. And as I'm doing this, it's the same time where I'm starting my next weekly progress pulse. And so any of those things that were in red or in yellow, I might change them a bit or shift them a bit, or I might just drag them down and we're going to continue working on those things the following week. Doing this at the end of each week is really helping you to kind of be mindful if you are on track to complete your 3-month mission or not. And hey guys, by the way, if you like these templates we're using to keep track of all of our goals today, I actually created them for the Learn and Earn Academy. That's my online community. And if one of your goals this year is to get better at market research, or to make designs people want to buy, or to start or scale your shop, you might think about checking out the Learn and Earn community. I'll leave it linked down below so you can find it. Every Monday, I put a post out in the Learn and Earn community to encourage the members to set their goals. It's kind of our weekly progress pulse. And the following Monday, if they come back in and kind of let us know red, green, or yellow on each of these things this week, then they could be randomly selected for a $25 drawing. If that sounds fun, I'll leave it linked down below. Or maybe you just really like the templates that I'm using and you'd like to pick them up for yourself. I'll include those down in the description below, completely free. You could download them, again, completely free, and use them to help you achieve the things you want to achieve this year. Remember, if you write it down, you are 42% more likely to achieve it. Guys, at this point, we are doing great. We identified our annual input goals. We broke them down and created our first 3-month mission. And now we're conducting our weekly progress pulses. So we keep ourselves mindful of our goals and we don't forget them. So what is next? So the next habit that is going to make this year your best year yet on Etsy is doing something we're going to call daily dashes. A daily dash is going to be just a really quick 1-minute activity where you jot down your priorities for the day, and these priorities are going to be supporting your weekly progress pulse, which of course is supporting your 3-month mission, which of course is supporting your annual goal. We're writing it down, so we're 42% more likely to achieve this now. and it gives us direction for what we want to finish for the day. So mine might look something like do market research for teacher Valentine's Day designs and start creating them, and listen to one piece of content, and then perhaps find a trendy Valentine's Day mock-up. You know, when you take a second to write down your intentions for the day, imagine if you followed through with those intentions all week long. Imagine if you followed through with those intentions all month long, for 90 days, for 365 days. You would be unrecognizable. The place in life where you're at, your place with your Etsy shop in this specific instance, will be absolutely unrecognizable 365 days from now if you actually took action and completed the things you say that you're going to do. You know, we're often so concerned with doing something effectively and quickly, but sometimes we might want to just shift the focus here from doing it effectively and efficiently to what are the actual tasks that you actually think are the most important things you need to work on today. What are the things that are going to move the needle forward in your business? Because sometimes it's the actual tasks that we're choosing, and going through these activities really keeps us mindful of the big picture of our goals and has us setting goals in weekly chunks and in daily chunks that are really the actions that are going to get us to those bigger annual goals we had, and making us choose maybe smarter tasks that are going to move the needle further in our businesses. And really the biggest thing that's going to impact your year on Etsy this year is, do you do the things you say you're going to do? Imagine doing the things you say you're going to do. That's transformative. That would transform your life. I have two more habits for you that are a little different than what we've been doing so far, which has been focused on writing down our goals. So I wanted to take the opportunity right now to share with you, did I accomplish those big goals I had? Remember from the beginning of the video, I told you that my input goals were to create 2,000 listings, to listen to daily content to improve my skills, to get increasingly better at adding value to the market, to work on 3 threads in my shop throughout the year, and to start listing for Christmas in July. And my output goals, things I don't have control over, but are things that I wanted to accomplish, hopefully as a result of my input goals, were 3,000 sales, to have a $5,000 profit month in my shop, to create a faster sales velocity in my shop, and to make over $15,000 profit with my shop. So you might be wondering, was I able to accomplish these things? My first calendar year on Etsy, January through December, I did complete all of my input goals, every single one of them. I was able to accomplish 2,000 listings in my shop. I was able to listen to that daily content, and I was adding to those threads. I started listing for Christmas in July. I accomplished all of those things. So was it enough to lead to my accomplishing the output goals? I did wind up with over 3,000 sales in my shop that calendar year. Did I have a $5,000 profit month? I did. Most of my months were not that good. I had a 4,000, which was super exciting. And then I dropped and had some lower months. And then I wound up with a $6,000 month as well. So I did wind up with a 5,000 or more, at least one of them, and it was only one of them, month that calendar year. Obviously, because I accomplished these two things, I had created a faster sales velocity in my shop. Most months were more sales than the month prior, all with the exception of 2 months during that growth that year. 2 of the months had a dip, while most months were at least a little bit higher than the month prior. And did I make over $15,000 profit with my shop? Indeed, I did. It was closer to right around $30,000. So the inputs that I had put together for myself had led to the outputs I was hoping for. And one more thing before we jump into our last two, if you are finding value from this video, go ahead and take a second to boop the like button for me. And if you don't want to miss future content similar to this, be sure to take a second and just give that subscribe button down there a little hug. Also, if you're looking for help with selecting your niches, and that's something you're struggling with and you're like, man, I don't even know what to put down on for my goals or which niches that I'm going to be working on, If you're listening to this video when it comes out mid-January, this would be a really great time to pick up a resource for yourself, a monthly calendar resource that went through what niches you could be working in month by month. I have created one of those, really truly a work of heart, as I really expanded a lot of the ideas in there and gave lots of extra information aside from just the niches that you could work on each month. I go into why some of those niches are on there. I go into how profitable those niches are. And if you purchase it by January 31st of 2025, you're going to be invited to a special session hosted by me where we can kind of dive into the resource, how you've been implementing it, and how it's been going. We're going to be doing that early March, and the reason the cutoff date for that is January 31st is because I want everyone that's at that session to have had a chance to interact, to implement, to work with the calendar for at least 30 days, because that's going to create the best conversation at that session. Okay, so number 5, the 5th habit that's going to help you have your best year yet on Etsy is multitasking. Okay, and so what I mean by that, I am not a very good multitasker. I am not able to watch TV and focus on making designs. That's something I can't do. When you're multitasking, you want to multitask things that don't require much thought with things that do require thought. So for example, one of the ways I was able to accomplish all of my inputs, I had a lot of content to listen to, and I touched on this earlier. But the way that I was able to accomplish that is I got very good at not wasting any time. So if I was cooking dinner, if I was taking a run, in the shower, blow drying my hair, certainly driving back, and I am still like this now. I listen to a lot of content every day so that I can continue to do well with Etsy, so that I can do well with YouTube, and to help enhance the ideas I have for my membership. It's a lot of these 3 areas that I listen to a lot of content in, and as a result, I have to squeeze them in, and I always watch them. I can focus on the content while I'm doing these other things that don't require a ton of focus. I often bring my earbuds with me so that if I'm walking around a grocery store, I can be listening to content then too. I love to re-listen to content, and so that's another great thing about it. I've just listened to it while I was walking around the grocery store. Now I'm listening to it in the car while I'm driving home, and it gives me a chance to really absorb that information little by little and keep myself super exposed to all of this knowledge. So another way you could accomplish this is if you are at the ball field with the kids, maybe you have a design app on your phone where you can sit and design while you're waiting to cheer your kiddo on when they have a chance at bat. And the 6th habit that is going to help you have your best year yet on Etsy is by deciding now that you're going to double down on things that are working in your shop. Now, instead of going into that deeply here, I mentioned it earlier, I'm going to link a video right here for you. This is one of the biggest strategies that helped me grow my Etsy shop. So I'll see you over there. But of course, not until after that tip from Tucker. Tucker, take it away.